Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked where I climb the online VGC Series 12 ladder and provide live commentary as I go. Today, as we wrap up our time in Sword and Shield, I wanted to feature the team that was the runner-up at the 2022 Pokemon Video Game World Championships. It was a Lunala Groudon team that was a little bit different from a lot of the Lunala teams we've seen throughout the format, and it was built and piloted by Guillermo Castilla-Diaz, who obviously finished second at Worlds. And so, yeah, as always, I'll do a quick breakdown of the team, but if you want to just skip to the battles, check out the timestamps in the description below. And thank you so much, as always, for watching. If you enjoy, please share your support by leaving a like. I'd really appreciate it. And question of the day, I want to know what your favorite part of Gen 8 was as we head into this brand new generation. So when talking about this team, the first thing that I want to highlight is the Weakness Policy Gigantamax Charizard. This was one really interesting meta adaptation going into the 2022 World Championships, where before Worlds, most players were using Charizards that didn't really have any bulk. You'd run a Life Orb on it, maybe something like a Lumberry or a Chartyberry, but it was rare for players to not invest like max speed in Charizard, right? So going into Worlds, a lot of players realized, hey, Weakness Policy on Charizard plus, screen support from Grimmsnarl and Intimidate support from Incineroar means that it's actually really difficult to KO Charizard, and often players will actually end up activating Weakness Policy on it. The idea here is that you're at max HP, you have so much bulk that you can just survive like a Life Orb Max Lightning from Thundurus, which is a really big deal. Thundurus is a Pokemon that was used so commonly, especially with Kyogre Zacian teams. And so, yeah, I will say I think now that, it's post-Worlds, people recognize the Weakness Policy on Charizards, and as a result often play around it a lot better than, before or during Worlds. But I think that's one thing that, is really interesting to follow as metagames develop, where it's like, yeah, for 95+% of the season, very few people use Weakness Policy Charizard, then Worlds comes around and almost everyone's using it. So the idea here is that, yeah, you're just ultra bulky with max HP investment, you're not just max speed, max special attack, but you have enough speed investment where after a speed boost, you can still outspeed things like Calyrex and Zacian, right? And so, yeah, Charizard here otherwise pretty straightforward. You're running Blast Burn, Hurricane, and Ancient Power just because you're maxing this Pokemon almost all the time. The next Pokemon to talk about here is Lunala. Now, this Lunala is a max speed variant, and so we've used max speed Lunala before, but the idea is basically after Airstream speed boost, the Lunala will outspeed Calyrex Shadow Rider, which is pretty nice. So one combo you can go with is, for example, Regieleki and Lunala to just Electro Web into Moongeist Beam to beat opposing Calyrexes. The Lunala here, however, is a little bit unique because instead of Trick Room, it's actually running Hypnosis. Hypnosis is an interesting option on Lunala, and normally you would expect Trick Room on Lunala Groudon teams, but the thing is, on this team, like, Groudon's the only Pokemon that really wants to take advantage of Trick Room anyway. The idea behind Hypnosis is that, yes, it's really inaccurate, but it can basically often bail you out of situations where you otherwise don't have any chance of winning, and Hypnosis is also one of those moves where if you're far enough ahead and you hit it, you can just immediately win the game, right? So you want to be really careful when you're using a move like Hypnosis because, of course, the odds of you missing are fairly high, and it would just mean that you would waste your turn with Lunala, but if you're in positions where you either absolutely need to rely on it to get back into the game or hitting one will just essentially seal you the victory, then it can be an absolutely amazing move to go for. And yeah, I think on this team it also makes sense, like I mentioned, because Trick Room I don't think is that powerful. Groudon is the next Pokemon here, and this is the White Herb Swords Dance Rock Tomb set. Wolf had actually used this earlier on in the season with his Lunala Groudon team, and I think that, most players who were using Lunala Groudon often opted for like Assault Vest on Groudon, but there was just so much Intimidate and so much Reflect in the format with Assault Vest, especially since you want to max Charizard or Regieleki with this team so frequently. I think the White Herb Swords Dance combination makes a lot more sense. The idea is with White Herb, you don't have to worry about Incineroar switching in and intimidating you nearly as much, and this can also be helpful for things like Charm Whimsicott, for example. To round out the team, you've got a classic Shukaberry Incineroar here. This one that finished second at Worlds was a little bit faster with 92 speed EVs, and so the idea is that you can slow down opposing Incineroars and Throat Chop them before they get to Parting Shot out, and the Throat Chop thus denies them the Parting Shot. Regieleki is the next Pokemon here. This is a offensive variant, as you can see, but it does have a little bit of bulk between HP defense and special defense. Also note that it is not max speed here, so if you're going up against opposing Regieleki, you have to be a little bit careful about that kind of dance. But the idea is that this is just an amazing Dynamax option, especially into Kyogre-oriented teams. As you'll notice, none of these Pokemon actually resist water-type attacks, right? So Kyogre can be annoying, but the idea is you can beat it between Grimmsnarl setting up Light Screen, Groudon changing the weather into Sun, Regieleki Dynamaxing, and then Lunala having Hypnosis as well. Also, don't discount the fact that, yeah, because you've got Weakness Policy on Charizard, or you have the Sun up or Light Screen is up, often Kyogres will actually activate the policy for you, allowing Charizard to deal more damage. And the final Pokemon here is just a very classic Grimmsnarl with Dual Screens, Spirit Break, and Scary Face. So tons of ways that you can run this team composition. That's one of the reasons why Lunala Groudon, I think, was a really strong pick throughout the entire format. You know, I've gone with things like Charizard Groudon, Grimmsnarl Charizard, as lead combos, Lunala Groudon, Regieleki Lunala, Regieleki Charizard. I think the amazing thing about a team like this is that you truly can flex so many different leads and, you know, combinations. But generally, you're looking to maximize damage output through Charizard, Regieleki, and then look for potential, you know, ways where Groudon can set up for a Swords Dance sweep in the end game. And yeah, Scream support from Grimmsnarl is really, really good as well, obviously. So yeah. Anyway, let's get into the battles. That is an Alcremie. That's really cool. It feels fitting that towards the end of Sword and Shield we're going up against it, because it was used a little bit in the beginning of Sword and Shield, which was really cool. Mainly Decorate. We've got Groudon, Zacian, Whimsicott, Gastrodon, Charizard, and Alcremie. So 4 of the 6 on Rinya Sun, but with Whimsicott and Alcremie. How do we want to approach this? Lunala is good, Incineroar is good, Charizard's good, Regieleki. We're going up against dual grounds. We probably don't want to bring that. I'm okay leading Grimmsnarl. I mean, Grimmsnarl Charizard here is just fairly strong in my opinion. This might be weird, but I almost don't want to bring Groudon. Like, I want Lunala and Incineroar instead. I guess I could also drop Lunala for Groudon. That's another option. Bring Lunala. I mean, Groudon's certainly not bad here. Incineroar just gives me better answers into both of their restricteds. I think Groudon's damage output is still really good here, so we should probably bring it. Alright. So what are we looking to accomplish here? What are we worried about? I think, first of all, Grimmsnarl is aiming to just set up screens fairly quickly, make it difficult for our opponent to, you know, KO the Charizard easily. Ideally, they activate our Weakness Policy for us. That would be awesome. It's going to be their Groudon and Charizard. Okay. This is interesting because both of their Pokemon threaten my Charizard immediately, and they likely will have the faster Charizard here as well. But I could go for something like a Light Screen plus a G-Max Wildfire. Both have potential Rock-type attacks, which is what makes this slightly scary, right? So, for example, I could Scary Face Charizard, Dynamax Rockfall. But they could max Groudon here. Not knowing who's going to max here actually makes this fairly tricky in my opinion. You know what? I think turn 1 I'm down to Scary Face Charizard and actually Protect here. Basically the reasoning here is right now I expect their Charizard to be faster. And I expect one of Groudon or Charizard to max and then like go for a Rock type attack into my Charizard. And we've got Weakness Policy here. So they end up going for a Rock type attack through Protect that'll actually activate my policy. And the idea is by going for Scary Face onto Charizard, now the Lunala in the back will also outspeed it. Like, I have to respect Charty Berry on Charizard here on turn 1. They might just go for something like Airstream or Wildfire into the Grimmsnarl slot, but I'd be okay with that. Okay, so we get Scary Face. It's kind of an unconventional play here, but we'll see how it turns out. Okay, Groudon actually just opts for Rock Slide. That's fine. I guess where it gets interesting is that they end up Airstreaming with Charizard here. They do Airstream. Okay. Into my Charizard. I'll take that. That works for me. If we see a Life Orb here, then what I can do is just, like, Scary Face Groudon, maybe Rockfall Charizard. It is Life Orb. Interesting. Okay. I could also just G-Max Wildfire here. I don't hate the Scary Face Rockfall play. I also think Charizard maybe survives Rock Slide thanks to it being super bulky. And then that would actually activate my Weakness Policy and put my opponent into a really tough spot. I guess where this could go wrong for me is if it's White Herb on the Groudon rather than Assault Vest or Citrus Berry. Or another item. But yeah, if we can get a one-hit knockout onto their Charizard and they were to activate our Weakness Policy, like, I'd be in super, super good shape. Okay, no Max Guard from Charizard, which is good. I was a little bit worried about that because they could obviously just Max Guard Rock Slide, so happy that ended up not being the case. Nice, now we're faster with our Charizard, and we're going to get the Max Rock Fall off, and that's going to KO Charizard. Beautiful. Yeah, so if I end up surviving Rock Slide here, then I just get a Scary Face Wildfire into whatever's coming in, and I think it's too hard for my opponent to come back from that. So we'll see if Rock Slide plus Sand manages to knock out our Charizard. Even if we hang on with just 1 HP after that combination, I'll be looking really good. And Charizard hangs on with 10 HP. Do we faint from Sand here, though? I said we needed just 1 HP. Let's see. Oh, we do end up fainting. Okay. Honestly, it's still fine, though. In the end, like, I think my positioning is better because I have slowed down their Groudon, and I have Grimmsnarl to set up screens, so I don't even mind this too much. Anyway, I'm going to bring out Groudon first. We don't want to bring out Lunala because Shadow Shield will be broken thanks to the Sand. And then bring out Alcremie. Okay. Was not expecting that, but I'm fine with that. They can obviously decorate. I can just reflect, though, with Grimmsnarl. We should assume Lunala is their last one. Or, sorry, Zacian is their last one. So I'm down to reflect and Swords Dance this turn, I think. Decorate isn't really that scary. Charizard just needed a little bit more HP there to survive the combination. If we got the Wildfire off, it's like we would get a Weakness Policy boosted Wildfire. And just have the residual for the remainder of the game. But I honestly still feel pretty good about my position. Now, however, I am very glad I brought Groudon over Incineroar. They should just opt for Dazzling Gleam rather than Decorate. Okay, it's fine. So, Grimmsnarl will faint. Groudon's going to get the Swords Dance off. Yeah, I mean, the endgame against Zacian is looking a little scary right now. Press this Blade, single target does connect. Reflect is up, so we'll take it. 101 HP. I'm contemplating protecting Lunala here just so that Shadow Shield isn't broken. I guess it doesn't really make that much of a difference, right? I kind of want to look for a double knockout. Especially since we do have Reflect up. Like, if I were them, it would make sense to just Dazzling Gleam and Precipice Blades again. Okay, yeah, I'm actually down to Protect and Precipice Blades this turn. Conserve the Shadow Shield. I ideally want to win this game without using Hypnosis, though. Okay, Groudon's not Assault Vested, so it reveals Protect. That's fine. Mystical Fire into the Lunala. Okay, that was not something I was trying to cover for, but I'm glad to see that come out. Precipice Blades does end up connecting here. Okay, nice. And it's not Focus Sash Alcremie, so it just faints. Nice. Okay. Well, one play I could make here... Like, the question is, do I survive Behemoth Blade from Zacian with Reflect up, given the HP that I have? I want to say the answer is yes. But if I end up just fainting, that'd be really bad, right? So if I think I'm going to faint, one play I could make is Protect Groudon, Hypnosis to Zacian. But since their Groudon just protected, I think here I'm actually down to just Moongeist Beam and Precipice Blades. Because here, like, Zacian could totally protect and then Groudon just go for an attack. So I'm covering for that option because I expect to survive Behemoth Blade. Now, if I don't survive Behemoth Blade, this ends up being a tricky position, but I'm fairly confident with Reflect we'll survive. We're just under 50%. If I had Trick Room, I would maybe consider going for that. And there's the Zacian Protect. Nice. Okay, so if we don't miss Precipice Blades on Groudon, this should just be a KO, and that should... Well, it wouldn't guarantee me the win quite yet, I would say, but obviously puts me into a better spot. But we really need to not miss with Groudon right now. It's really good damage. Precipice Blades, okay. Zacian protects. Nice, and we don't miss. Beautiful. Okay, with the Swords Dance, that's enough for a KO. Excellent. I wonder if I ever go for Rock Tomb here, because, like... Or Meteor Beam to get a special attack boost. I think I'm content just clicking Moongeist Beam here. I actually do think it might be worth it to click Rock Tomb here. Yeah. Because, like, the 10% accuracy actually makes me feel a lot better, and with it, then Lunala will outspeed Zacian as well, which is a pretty big deal. Yep, so they target the Groudon slot, and we do survive. Cool. Yeah, the idea here was to just go for the most accurate attacks in this endgame. I guess if they knocked out Groudon there with a crit, that could have been kind of bad. But then, what would I try to depend on? Probably clicking Hypnosis. And yeah, Moongeist Beam is a 2-hit KO after Rock Tomb chip damage, and we get the speed drop. Nice. Cool. I wish we could have shown off the Weakness Policy Charizard a little bit more, since that was like the set that really dominated Worlds, and in the end the policy actually did end up getting activated, but you know, we weren't in a position to actually utilize it since we just took enough damage from Rock Slide and Sand. So this was an interesting game because, like, it was very much about setting up the long term, right? Like, the early couple of turns, I actually feel like, you know, I didn't get that much value, and Charizard really wasn't able to accomplish too much, it feels like, and I didn't get Wildfire off. But by going for Scary Faces, like, I was able to control the speed, and then once Groudon came out and got the Swords Dance off, it put it into a really good position, in my opinion. So, yeah. Okay, next game here, we've got Yveltal Groudon with Cinderace, Raichu, Incineroar, and Venusaur. So, this is probably not the right match for Regieleki. It could be interesting still, because I can Max Strike with it. I'm worried about a lot. I think their whole team is scary. Charizard looks really strong here, but I have to worry about Sleep Powder from Venusaur. Something like Fake Out plus Sleep Powder is somewhat scary. We don't have a Goggles here. I think I like Grim Charizard, Groudon, and then Lunala. You could make an argument for Incineroar, though. Especially because they could play a Cinderace-centric game. And Cinderace here is kind of annoying as well. But the general idea here is just, once again, set up screens for the Charizard. I think, like, here I really have to worry about a couple things. One, I can't Scary Face Yveltal because it's Dark-type, so it's immune to Prankster. Two, Yveltal could Snarl my Charizard, just greatly reducing my damage output. It's going to be Yveltal Raichu. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, so, like, the debate on whether or not I really want to max here is interesting. It's also Air Balloon on Raichu. Okay. They could just fake out Airstream, like, double up onto the Grimmsnarl slot. I think here... See, I've got Lunala and Groudon with Rock Tomb in the back. I think I'm down to just Light Screen, Max, and Wildfire. Maybe I want to target Yveltal, though, because I don't want to give them a free switch in. Yeah, that works for me. I could see them being Life Orb Yveltal here and going for Fake Out plus Airstream onto the Grimmsnarl slot. I could... Oh. Well, I was going to say, I like, they could be Weakness Policy, Self-Volt Switch, but I guess since I'm setting up Light Screen here, unless they were physical, that would actually be okay. Wouldn't be too much of a problem for us. Yveltal's going to max. Charizard's going to max as well. And, of course, we're using a slower Charizard here, so it's not surprising Yveltal's maxing before us. I don't know, I also contemplated the idea of, like, Protect Spirit Break turn 1, but if they just fake out Airstream Grimmsnarl, that's so bad for me. So, didn't want to take that risk. Let's see. And if we can clear Yveltal, then Groudon Lunala, I think, have a really good time in this matchup. Okay, they're not going to go for Fake Out, so I'm going to get Light Screen up. Now I'm just worried about it being physical Yveltal with Self-Volt Switch. Ah, it's Eerie Impulse. Okay. That's a nice play. And Airstream. Could be worse, I guess. Like, I'm not going to do that much damage, but they're also not doing much damage to me in return. So that's the advantage of this, like, extra bulky Charizard, right? Okay, we don't see an Assault Vest. And it's like, even though my damage output for my attack here... Sorry. I was going to say we don't see a Life Orb. That actually looks like Assault Vest to me. But the point I wanted to make here is that the residual from Gmax Wildfire is just so good here, right? Like, we're both not doing much damage to each other, but in the end, I think I get the better end of the trade-off. So I get Eerie Impulse again. I set up Light Screen successfully. I don't mind clicking Spirit Break into Yveltal here. Spirit Break and just Wildfire into Raichu. That seems okay to me. If I can knock out Raichu, then I can go for... Okay, they're going to go for Volt Switch to activate Policy. So it is Weakness Policy. Okay, I thought it was Assault Vest, but I guess we were at -2 and we don't have Life Orb and Charizard just doesn't actually do that much damage. Works for me. I'm not even sure you KO either Pokemon right now, and if you don't, like, they're going to be in really bad shape, I think. So, I'm fine with that. Incineroar is going to come out. That's a mighty fine Pokemon to bring out right now. It does not take any residual damage from Wildfire, and it gets an Intimidate on a Grimmsnarl. So, nice selection there. And they're going to go for another Airstream here. Okay. Yep, and with Light Screen, we just survived that. So, you can see once again how valuable Dual Screens Grimmsnarl is and why it's been a staple throughout all of Sword and Shield for really 3 years at this point. So it's a nice switch at Instant Incineroar. It's going to take minimal damage. I like that play a lot from my opponent's end, but in the grand scheme of things, like, I'll still take it, right? I get a Spirit Break on an Yveltal. That's meaningful damage. Your policy is activated. You're only at +1 now. And I can actually go for max Rockfall on this final turn, which also sets up more residual damage for me. I think the debate here is, do I ever want to consider switching out Grimmsnarl? I'm fine staying in here. I'll click Reflect. And yeah, we'll go for Rockfall here. It's not going to do that much into Yveltal, but then they're also taking Sand damage. They're also taking G-Max Wildfire damage. Incineroar is going to opt not to click Fake Out here. Fine by me. Setting up Reflect just helps me in the end game, especially if their final one is Groudon. And there's Max Darkness onto Charizard. But yeah, you can see, like, yeah, Weakness Policy Yveltal, you're not that scary when I've got Light Screen and I've got a really bulky Charizard. In the end, you know, Yveltal actually hasn't been able to pick up a KO quite yet, which is great for us. So, -2 Rockfall. It's not going to do that much damage, but yeah, I think Yveltal will survive even after the residual. Wow, that's so minimal, actually. I think one thing that's really interesting, though, by the way, is that, like, going into Worlds, like, Weakness Policy Charizard was kind of this new trend, right? And then I'd say, like, before Worlds, very few players were using it outside of, like, the top players who were testing it for Worlds. And so, you know, going into Worlds, I think people probably had seen it, but it wasn't, like, the norm. And then now after Worlds, like, almost every Charizard team had Weakness Policy on it. So now you basically just, like, always expect it, right? Either way, we got both screens up. Still have one more turn of residual damage. And so I'm happy to just bring out Groudon here, I think, and protect the Groudon, let Yveltal faint. If their endgame is Incineroar, Raichu, and Groudon, and I've got Groudon plus Lunala, I think it heavily favors me. So this early game's been weird where, like, neither of our restricteds really did that much damage, but I think in the end, Yveltal's the biggest threat to Lunala, so if that just faints here, it's super good for us. This turn is interesting. I could make the decision to, say, just attack with Groudon. Kind of expect Chocoberry here on Incineroar, though. So I'm down to just Protect and actually just Ancient Power into Incineroar. Maybe Incineroar switches out. That would be fine. I have White Herb. But it looks like they're going to stay in. So Groudon protects. Ooh, it's Weakness Policy and Tailwind. That's really cool. Okay. That changes a lot. But they end up just parting shotting into my Groudon slot, which I think is totally fine. So we're going to get a -2 Ancient Power into Incineroar. It's actually not bad damage, honestly. Okay. And Yveltal faints from Wildfire. So the good thing is I set up Light Screen and Reflect. They have a Raichu in the back. We've only really seen Eerie Impulse and Volt Switch from it. Raichu really generally can't do very much against Groudon in this format. And presumably their final Pokemon is Groudon. So they're going to bring Raichu out, which makes sense. Allows you to cycle Fake Out right now. Is Air Balloon, as we see. Here it makes sense to click, I don't know, like Fake Out and Parting Shot. I guess Raichu could also just go for the KO into Charizard. Okay, I don't hate going for Rock Tomb here just to get rid of the Air Balloon. And Blast Burn into Raichu as well. Okay, so they're gonna... Ooh, I like this play a lot, actually. They're gonna cycle out, bring out the Groudon. Yeah, this is actually really smart. And then also Parting Shot into Groudon. So I'll be at neutral, but then Incineroar can just cycle in the subsequent turn. Yeah, this is a really nice play. Swords Dance would have been a lot stronger for me here. That was nicely done. I could have protected Charizard there as well to mitigate this a little bit. Because the problem is now my Groudon is just infinitely going to be... because of Swords Dances, I guess not that much of an issue so far. So they'll bring out Raichu. I'll bring out Lunala. Now, Raichu obviously can go for Eerie Impulse. But I think the combination of Reflect plus us having Swords Dance makes this look okay. So they can't click Fake Out onto Lunala. I've got Meteor Beam. I've got Hypnosis as well. I don't think I want to click Hypnosis here, but it could be valuable because Groudon's really their only damage at this point. So risk versus reward wise, I actually think if there's any time to go for Hypnosis, it is here right now. Because let's say we hit and they just take 3 turns of sleep. Oh, they actually switch. Okay, that works too. Especially with them switching, right? It's like, yeah, if Hypnosis connects on Incineroar here and they just can't attack with that Pokemon at all anymore, that's super valuable. Yeah, and they go for Eerie Impulse. That's fine. Like, right now they can decrease my attack and special attack all they want, but where's the damage coming from at this point, right? It really has to come out from the Groudon. Unfortunately, I missed Hypnosis there. That's fine. Get Swords Dance off. So we are at +1 attack now with Groudon. The Lunala, don't have to worry about Fake Out too much from the Incineroar onto the Lunala slot, but like Incineroar here could pivot out into Groudon, right? So that's one thing I have to watch out for. I'm gonna click Precipice Blades. I don't want a Meteor Beam yet, I think. Precipice Blades. And just Moongeist Beam Raichu. I don't know, like, Hypnosis feels tempting here. Oh, they misclicked? They ended up charming Lunala. Okay, that is not how I expected things to go. Okay, so, I mean, I'm sure they were trying to charm Incineroar there, right? So I'm curious, because I think if they weren't Shuka Berry on Incineroar, I'd actually get the double KO anyway. Because Moongeist Beam here would break the Air Balloon. And we'd be at -1, but... Is there Shuka? No, there's no Shuka on Incineroar. Okay, so even if they had charmed Groudon, like, surely that was just them timing out or misclicking. Maybe Groudon would have still just done enough damage to pick up the double knockout. But yeah, this Raichu is really a nuisance, right? Eerie Impulse and Charm. Tailwind Peter's out as well, so now we're looking really good. I didn't contemplate the possibility of Charm, but I don't think I actually would have changed how I played that turn anyway. Maybe go for another Swords Dance with Groudon. But the thing is, we need to knock out Raichu at some point, right? So now we're at +1. We still have 3 turns of Reflect. I am down to Rock Tomb here and Protect. With so many turns of Reflect, I think it's really tough for Groudon to win. But the idea is Rock Tomb, get a Speed Drop onto it. Then I can go for Hypnosis plus Precipice Blades or another Swords Dance. We're already faster here. Okay. Get to confirm that. So we drop their speed. And they just Precipice Blades. And the other thing I wanted to cover for there was, I don't know, like a random Shadow Claw on Groudon onto the Lunala slot and Groudon. Well, there's no way there would be Choice Scarf, right? So I don't think I actually need to do that. Might as well just maximize my Reflect turns. That was probably overly safe. Yeah, we can just click Precipice Blades now and Hypnosis. The one downside here is that we are using multiple attacks that can miss, but we missed Hypnosis on Incineroar earlier and it was still fine. Groudon does go for Protect, okay. I guess I could be clicking Swords Dance there, but at this point I just don't want to risk a crit. I think single target Blades might just get the KO. Well, if I had to guess, they'll hang on with like 5-10%. But yeah, I guess I could go for Moongeist Beam instead of Hypnosis then. Hypnosis does miss. Precipice Blades does connect though, okay. Yeah, I mean, they're still going to need a double crit here in order to win. And yeah, Groudon hangs on with exactly 10. And they actually don't hit my Groudon. Okay. But yeah, that wasn't KO Lunala anyway. Anyway, this definitely would have been a more interesting game if that Charm had actually connected with Groudon, right? So, yeah, obviously we got lucky there that they ended up either misclicking or timing out. Actually, we don't need a Precipice Blades here, sorry. Rock Tomb is more accurate, so we can just go for Rock Tomb and Moongeist Beam. I think this game highlights, though, why Hypnosis on Lunala is a really interesting option, right? Like, I didn't connect either of the times I had used it, and if I had hit in either of those scenarios, I feel like I probably would have just won the game. Also, the turn my opponent went for Charm, yeah, maybe they were trying to go for Volt Switch instead, because if they had a doubled up onto the Lunala slot with Volt Switch and Darkest Lariat, Lunala actually would have fainted that turn. So, I think I should have thought a little bit more about just protecting Lunala there. I didn't do a very good job. in that position. So yeah, I mean, I think that turn just, you know, made it so that it went from, okay, this is a fairly tricky game, to this game feels like it's more or less over. But I feel like this game highlights why Swords Dance Groudon is really valuable, because without Swords Dance, I just wouldn't have really been able to do too much damage in the end game. But thanks to Swords Dance, I didn't have to care as much about the Intimidate cycling. So yeah. We've got Gardevoir, Tornadus, Dragapult, Solgaleo, Kyogre, and Ditto here. That's awesome. That's a really fun team. The main thing to worry about is probably Tornadus Brutal Swing, activating Policy on Solgaleo. That is actually quite annoying. Whimsicott can just set up Reflect, and Groudon can Max. That's one approach. Could bring Regieleki. The other consideration is to like try to stall out their Dynamax. I also don't hate the idea. Like, you know, one thing we could do here with Lunala is actually Scary Face Tornadus and then just Hypnosis. I actually don't hate that as an option here. Regieleki is actually a really solid max option, and we haven't really gotten to bring it out yet, so I'm gonna give it a try here. Basically, the idea is if they go with Tornadus Solgaleo, I can, yeah, go for Hypnosis. In this position, though, it's a little bit scarier. Like in the previous game, I could afford a Hypnosis miss or two, but in this one, I don't think I can if they're going with the Tornadus Solgaleo lead. Because if they just go for Brutal Swing into Policy activation, the Brutal Swing would break my Focus Sash. But they're actually going to go Tornadus and Dragapult. Okay. Don't really know what to make of that. I mean, Dragapult can actually Dynamax in this position. Most Dragapults in Series 12 are actually more support-oriented, though, so I'm not really sure what to fully expect. Yeah, I'm down to start with the Reflect here. Reflect and just Moongeist Beam? I don't hate Meteor Beaming Tornadus here. I don't think Max Dragapult really scares me much. Like, yeah, maybe you KO the Lunala, but then I got Max Groudon or Max Yveltal. Sorry, Max Groudon or Max Regieleki in the back. Although I don't probably want to Max Aleki in front of this position. Okay, so we're not going to Dynamax. That's fine. Get Reflect up. Just Thunder Wave. Okay. I don't mind that, I guess. What is Tornadus going for? Hurricane. Okay. We get pretty lucky with the dodge there. Kind of surprised they just went for a Hurricane. But I guess, yeah, they were like, I don't really need to set up Tailwind or go for Brutal Swing yet. That would make sense to me. And fortunately for us, we managed to attack through Paralysis and the accuracy. So we'll see if Tornadus is Focus Sash here. It's not. Okay, that's cool. Well, I guess it could be Solgaleo now, and then you could go for Brutal Swing with that. I'm curious, though, if the Lunala could survive a Steel Spike, because then I can just Hypnosis. I am also at +1. There's also the world in which I Dynamax Lunala to Phantasm. That's actually a fairly interesting option. The annoying thing with Grimmsnarl here is not being able to go for Scary Face onto Dragapult nor the Solgaleo, thanks to their abilities. Yep, so they're Solgaleo. I don't know, maxing Lunala is kind of interesting here to me. Spirit Break here. I still think it's probably more consistent to Dynamax Groudon. So, I'll go for Spirit Break and just, Oh! Okay, that is interesting. They Sucker Punched on Steel Strike, but that shouldn't KO me. Because I have Reflect up. Yeah. I'm now worried about getting fully paralyzed with the Lunala, so we'll see. Good damage from Spirit Break. Nice, no para. These first two turns have not played out how I expected them to at all, with Hurricane, Thunder Wave, and then Sucker Punch into just Sunsteel Strike, and that actually just KOs Solgaleo. Okay, we'll take it. Lunala proving itself to be the more dominant out of the restricted duo from that gen. Although I loved using Solgaleo in this format. Kyogre's the last one. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised at how this has played out, but now it's a pretty clear Regieleki Dynamax endgame, I think the main debate here is whether or not I'd want to go for, like, Scary Face onto Kyogre or set up Light Screen. I think both are fine. But I think Scary Face is actually the right call here, because then Regieleki and Groudon both just outspeed. And I'll change the weather as well. So, yeah. Scary Face, Kyogre. I'm gonna Hypnosis it as well to avoid a Sucker Punch from the Lunala. Or on the Lunala. Because the Lunala maybe outspeeds the Kyogre. They are not Dynamaxing at all. That is interesting. Okay. Although this turn actually makes sense to not max, I think, if you want to go for like a Water Spout or an Origin Pulse. You actually go for Phantom Force. Okay. So it was Phantom Force, Sucker Punch, Thunder Wave, Dragapult. I've clicked Hypnosis 3 times with Lunala. Has not gotten it off yet, but that's fine. So that's a double KO, but now it's just a free switch into Regieleki plus Groudon, and I'm faster than Kyogre. And Dragapult can't Dynamax this turn. So you would think, you know, it's just going to be Dynamax Kyogre, but we can just go for Max Aleki, Max Lightning into the Kyogre, and then Precipice Blades. If I had set up Light Screen, I'd be in the same position, but Groudon maybe is slower than the Kyogre. Maybe Light Screen was just better to set up, but I like the idea of knowing I'd outspeed here in this endgame with Regieleki. So Blades, Dynamax, Lightning. The other thing to consider is Dynamax Groudon, but since they're Phantom Forcing here, I think it's just always better to Dynamax Regieleki. Like, Max Groudon doesn't really accomplish much for me in this position anyway, other than, you know, Max Quake for a special defense boost, but Regieleki's damage output is just super good, and that's part of why I brought it into this battle. I was a little bit surprised to not see Solgaleo Dynamax earlier. I felt like that was a good time to max it. So, let's see. I mean, even if Kyogre Max Guards here, Max Guard would lose them the game, I actually think, because then Dragapult comes out, Phantom Force doesn't KO either. I guess I could miss Precipice Blades, but if I were to connect, then it's a 2v1 against Max Kyogre. So, the Dynamax finally is going to come out. I think one thing that's so interesting in Sword and Shield is just, like, how different Dynamaxes can play out, right? And here we're, like, a couple turns into the battle already. Like, we're down to our final 2 Pokemon, and both of us have kind of held our max all the way until the end. Now, I was expecting them to Dynamax Solgaleo way earlier on in the battle. Okay. Here's Max Lightning. Looks like Assault Vest to me. That's fine. Good thing is, like, Groudon's going to be faster than Kyogre, right? But Dragapult's going to be faster than the Groudon. So Dragapult will come out, Groudon will Precipice Blades, and my opponent should not be able to pick up a double knockout in this position. But I guess it's scary because I can miss Precipice Blades like that. That's on the Kyogre, though. Okay, so we KO the Dragapult. I don't think a Max Geyser here KOs Regieleki. And they actually up for Hailstorm, so that's definitely not KOing. Yeah. Actually, does base 140 Geyser in Sun, same type attack bonus, do more or less than Hailstorm? I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. Either way, yep. Now we just Lightning for a KO, and you should be Assault Vest here, so this should always just guarantee us to win. Yeah. And that's why Regieleki is on this team, right? It is super powerful into a lot of Kyogre compositions, and you have the ability to just one-shot Kyogres that aren't Assault Vested, and those that are, you can get a 2-hit knockout onto them. And with screen support from Grimmsnarl as well as Intimidate support, it can be a little bit tricky to actually knock out the Regieleki. So, yeah. I think it's very clear to me how this team was able to finish second at the World Championships. Of course, it almost won this year. It was 1 game away from becoming a World Championship winning team. And it is definitely a quite different take on Lunala Groudon than we had seen throughout all of Series 12, right? Whether it be the Swords Dance White Herb Rock Tomb set on the Groudon or the Hypnosis Protect on the Lunala rather than seeing Trick Room on that. And so, yeah, ultimately, I think I wish we could have showcased like the Weakness Policy Charizard and the Hypnosis Lunala off a little bit more, but in the end, the team is just incredibly consistent, even with many moves that can miss. So thank you so much as always for watching. Leave a like if you enjoy. Don't forget to answer the question of the day, and I'll see you all next time. All right, peace.